Good morning, students. This is Anshoo Sharma from Government College, Chaksu, and today I shall be doing the poem The World is Too Much with Us by William Wordsworth. Earlier, I had discussed the Romantic period with you and also talked about the different poets that belong to this period. But today, I shall be concentrating upon this poem, The World is Too Much with Us. And just before that, I'll give you a short, brief background about William Wordsworth, who was born on the 7th of April 1770 and he left this world on the 23rd of April 1850. He, along with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, helped to launch the Romantic Age in English literature with their joint publication under the title of The Lyrical Ballads, which was published in 1798. Wordsworth's semi autobiographical poem, The Prelude, is perhaps his grandest poem, which he revised and expanded a number of times. And it was posthumously titled and published by his wife in the year of his death, that is 1850. And before this formal publication, the poem was generally known as the poem to Coleridge. So, a prelude was, you can see, one of his major poems, and it was published after his death. Now, Wordsworth was born in a very scenic region in the northwestern England known as the Lake District. This I had earlier also mentioned and told you about how beautiful the Lake District was and how it influenced Wordsworth and his works. Wordsworth was taught to read by his mother and later sent to a school in Penrith, where he was taught by Anne Burkett, who insisted on instilling in her students traditions that included pursuing both scholarly and local activities. And Wordsworth was taught both the Bible and the Spectator. Now, Spectator was one of the magazines that had been launched by Richard Steele. But besides the Bible and the Spectator, there was little else that was taught to Wordsworth. And interestingly, it was his school at Penrith that he met his future wife, that is Mary Hutchinson. Uh, as far as his family was concerned, his father belonged to the legal side. He was a legal representative, and therefore he remained frequently away from home, and therefore had very little involvement with Wordsworth and his siblings. However, he did encourage William in his reading and, in particular, set him to commit large portions of the verse to memory, like learn it by heart, including works of Milton, Shakespeare, and Spenser. And he was also encouraged to use his father's library extensively for this purpose. Now, Wordsworth made his debut as a writer in 1787 when he published a sonnet in the European magazine. And the same year, he began with his graduation at St. John's College, Cambridge, and received his BA degree in 1791. He often spent his holidays on walking tours, visiting places famous for beauty and beautiful landscape. And it is in 1790 that he went on a walking tour of Europe, which he where he toured the Alps extensively and visited nearby areas of France, of Switzerland, and also Italy. And it was his experiences during this extensive touring, this extensive traveling, and exposure to the district, that is the place of his birth, that was basically it was the combination of all this that was an inspiration for his poetry. And especially having grown up in the Lake District, His association with nature was not merely as an observer or as an admirer, but it was a very close relationship where he saw the kinship between nature and man. It is here that this feeling, this oneness with nature, kind of, got ingrained within him. And with nature, he felt had the power to sustain human beings through both sorrow and happiness. And he also felt in nature a mystic presence which obliterated the divisions between the real and the mystic. He always perceived it in relation to man. I mean, nature was not something, uh, you know, um, something isolated or something different from man. Rather, he felt that nature and man were one, and it was nature that sustained man, the humankind. And it was both, whether it was sorrow or whether it was happiness. In both the cases, it was nature that came to the rescue of man. So, this was a very short, brief description of Wordsworth and his background. And now I'll straight away get down to analyzing the poem. It's a short poem of 14 lines, and it is written in the form of a Petrarchan sonnet, which is also known as the Italian sonnet. Now, last year when I had done the Shakespearean sonnets with you, I had explained the difference between both the kinds of sonnets. This sonnet also has 14 lines, which are divided into two parts. And here in this poem, "The World is Too Much with Us," here also it's a short poem of 14 lines, and it uses the iambic pentameter. And the rhyme scheme is very clearly A B B A A B B A C D C D C D. The sonnet, thus you can see, is divided into two parts of 8 lines and 6 lines, called the octave and the sestet, respectively. Now, if you see carefully, the octave elaborates the problems while the sestet tries to look for solutions. And in this poem, Wordsworth criticizes the world's absorption with materialism, because this was a time of the Industrial Revolution and people had got too much, absorbed in earning and spending. And so, this materialism, you can say, was the natural outcome of the first Industrial Revolution, and which had further resulted in distancing people from nature and also disenchantment towards nature. The people were, you can say, alienated from everything that was meaningful. I mean, this is what Wordsworth felt, that everything that was meaningful, people were losing touch from it. And one major reason for it was that people had gone away from nature. And the poet explores nature, explores the sublime, explores the past. And the poet, or you can say the speaker, he rejects civilization and laments that humanity has lost touch with nature. And the poem invites the reader to consider their relationship to the world around them. I'll just quickly read the poem. The world is too much with us, late and soon. The world is too much with us, late and soon. Getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. This sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not, great God. I did rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn. So might I standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn, have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his writhed horn. So you can catch the rhyme scheme of the poem, and you can see that it has been divided. The first eight lines is problematizing or drawing our attention to the problem, and the next six lines they are trying to look for a solution. You can see here the sonnet begins with a declaration: the world is too much with us. The speaker suggests that humanity's focus on civilization or the world has resulted in the loss of a deeper connection to nature. The first line then ends with late and soon. Now, this claims that, this shows the preoccupation with the world has plagued humanity for some time and will continue to do so. And the next two lines call attention to how the world may negatively affect humanity. Getting and spending, we lay waste our power. We are just concentrating on acquiring, concentrating on spending, concentrating on material things, and hence we lay waste our powers. uh, Getting and spending, this is like, specifically the focus is on acquiring materialistic things, and by focusing on such actions we ignore what is natural and nourishing for our soul, and in such pursuits we lay waste our powers. you know we lay waste our powers which could have been used for the betterment of our minds and hearts instead. But uh, we have now, in line 3 you can see that the speaker says that we do not seem to find anything in nature that belongs to us, and this suggests a fundamental separation from nature, not only in understanding but also through a lack of control and ownership. In the next very line, the poet declares that we have clinched a poor bargain by giving away our hearts in exchange for commercial benefits. Like, our hearts are something in where all our emotions, feelings, all the finer things are supposed to reside, and we have given that away, just for in return for some commercial benefits. So he says, he uses the words, that it's a poor bargain, and we have like kind of, the words sordid and boon, they create an oxymoron which expresses that there is an uneasy trade, and that the poet is unhappy with it, and he laments that humanity has given away its connection to nature for industrialization, and as a consequence lost its sense of belonging to the natural world. It's like sordid boon, this is like a very loaded word, it's a kind of a paradox. And then in line 5, the speaker goes on to describe the grandeur of the sea. Uh, he goes on to describe the grandeur of the sea, and he has cast it in a, feminine, as a feminine entity, and he says that the sea bears a bosom to the moon. This description anthropomorphizes the sea, creating a maternal figure. In the next line, the poet describes the winds as howling at all hours. Before that, sorry, let me just read this line again. Bears her bosom to the moon. You can see there's two of the poetic devices have been used here. One is alliteration, BB, bears, bosom, and the other is personification, because the sea has been personified as a woman. Now, in the next line, the poet describes the winds as howling at all hours and couples that with a simile in which the winds are upgathered, now like sleeping flowers. So you can see that there's a juxtaposition of the violence of the howling winds with the gentleness of the sleeping flowers. Again, two contrasts. And the sleeping flowers indicate that the humans, as of now, are dormant. But when they wake up, they will realize the beauty and power of nature. So there's, you can say, a kind of hope here that this sleep is peaceful, and he's comparing it to the sleeping flowers, where the petals are closed. But hopefully, when they open up, they will, realize the beauty. In the next line, the speaker emphasizes that we are out of tune, which evokes a sense of disharmony. It's an image drawn out of music, which, when in sync, has the power to produce great beauty. But when the strains become discordant, they lead to chaos and clamor. Uh, the humans seem to lose touch with nature, as the poet claims that it moves us not. Now, this is specifically reference to our hearts, our emotions, our feelings that are no longer touched or no longer aroused by nature. This short line, which gets his point in a straightforward way, and it changes the rhythm of the poem. So it's like from here that you can sense a change. Earlier, he's just been enumerating all the problems that have set in due to the industrialization. That's in the first part, that's the octave, you can say. And in the sestet, in the next six lines, he is trying to get the reader's attention, that people being more and more distant from nature, and that it does not have any emotional effect on us. But in the next line, he's like, it's now here, it's the culmination, this is a short kind of letting out of his emotion when he says great God. And it's like an exclamation, and which is almost blasphemous, which further shows how distressed the speaker is with this apathy towards nature. And you can see that there is, again, the poetic device of alliteration has been used, because there's a repetition of the letter G, great God. So you can see there is alliteration, and this exclamation is kind of, he's letting out his emotion, he's kind of distressed, and that is what is, comes forth through this usage. uh, Now, this great God, it emphasizes his emotional state, and also attracts the reader's attention towards the same. Moving on to the next line, he says, a pagan suckled in creed outworn. Now, he uses this word suckled, which conveys the idea of being born and nourished. So, he decided upon the word suckled because it reiterates the idea of being nurtured. Similarly, the words creed outworn were chosen very carefully so that the readers would understand with precision and clarity that he would rather be attached to a worn out system of beliefs rather than be out of tune with nature. He prefers to be in sync with nature, he prefers to be with nature and be attached to a system that is no longer in fashion, or you can say no longer in vogue. It is outworn, it's lived out of its utility, and people no longer remember it. But for Wordsworth, it's preferable than to be lost in the present state of materialism. Then outworn, again, refers to the old Greek religion, and which no longer is relevant or adequate. It's not found relevant or adequate by the Christians. But he prefers to be standing on open, vast grassland, which appears pleasant to him. I mean, if you notice, he says, so I might standing on this pleasantly. Again, there's a lilt. You can catch the sound, LL sound, pleasantly. So he wishes to be standing here on this vast green grassland, and it appears to be very pleasant, very soothing, and to the depths of his soul, he feels soothed when he looks at this vast greenery. And he wishes to draw the attention of the readers also to his experience, so as to leave a lasting impression on their minds and hearts. He uses very precise diction, you can see, and he chooses his words very, very carefully. In the next line, when he says that he prefers to have glimpses that would make him less forlorn. So these glimpses are of the nature. These glimpses are from the land, from the vast sea, from the vast grasslands, and all these glimpses, they seem to make him happier. They seem to make him less forlorn. Now, the word glimpses indicates that what he sees is for a very short while. It's not something that he is looking at for a very, very long time, but it's for a very short while, very short time. And he knows that it will not last for very long. And similarly, the words less forlorn again show the degree of his sadness. But the glimpses of this beauty of nature uplifts his mood, though only maybe for a very short period of time. Then, in the last two lines, please note that he includes the old gods of the past. And because people were familiar with them, they could relate to what he was conveying. He is talking about Proteus, who rises from the sea, who's a demigod, who's the son of the sea god himself. And he also mentions the old Triton, who blows his wreathed horn. Now, this is like again reference to the sea god who can quieten down the violent sea waves by blowing his horn. He has that kind of power to uh, calm down the roaring sea. So you can say that you can see that by recalling them, he emphasizes that he is weary of the present state of affairs, the clamor, the din. He's weary of all of it, and he would rather be raised in the pagan beliefs than be separated from nature. Nature would have the power, force, and significance it used to have when these gods used to be worshipped, which had been lost in the present times. And that is what kind of saddens Wordsworth. When he gazes at the vast greens or the deep blues, he feels less sad. He would see wild mythological gods like Proteus, who can take many shapes, and Triton, who can soothe the poet's soul, just as he can soothe the howling of the sea waves. Thus, we see that Wordsworth uses the familiar structure of a sonnet, as well as the familiar ancient gods, to persuade the reader to engage in a positive way to the concepts addressed by him in this short poem. So, uh, you can see that within the framework of 14 lines, he has conveyed all that which has been troubling him, all that which has been paining him, all that which he feels has taken him away from nature. And he, towards the end, is trying to look for an answer, is trying to look for a way out. And it's the sea, it's the land, it's the green pastures, it's the beauty of nature, it's the pagan gods that he feels can again restore his well being, can restore the well being of mankind. I hope the poem is clear. Please go through the questions that I had given you earlier and try and answer them after this explanation. Um, Once again, thank you for your patient listening. Till we meet next for the next lesson. Goodbye.